Well, have you ever considered going on a group tour? Well, today I have the Chief Experience Officer at Backroads, Avery Hale-Smith. She brings a lifelong passion for travel, cultural connection, and guest experience. She's raised in the Bay Area and deeply influenced by her family's global adventures. She returned to Backroads in 2021 after building a career in strategy, marketing, and customer experience. Avery played a key role in launching Backroads Women's Adventures and the new 30s and 40s trips, and continues to help shape the future of active travel. Her passion for creating meaningful impact began early. At age 12, she founded a nonprofit focused on social advocacy, a commitment that was later recognized by the United Nations. She holds a degree in communications and psychology from Wake Forest University and now works alongside her father, who is the founder and CEO, Tom Hale, to lead innovation, quality, and growth in active travel. Well, welcome, Avery. I'm so glad you're here. What a
Thank you so
bio.
much, Cheryl. Thank you for that very kind introduction. It's great to be here with you. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yes. Well, you have obviously large history. You're going to get your family history of being involved in it, travel. So I'm sure you have lots of stories to share about kind of how it all started. And, obviously you have that passion because you have continued kind of exploring in this travel industry. Is there any story, early on story, that stands out to you as kind of like you kind of got the idea? I'm obviously your father already had the passion, right? And
Sure.
maybe you caught that at some point. Can you share a story about that?
Yeah, just to make sure I'm understanding your question, Cheryl, point in time where I got the bug to join
Yes.
Backroads or just
Yes.
travel in
Yeah.
general?
Just,
Sure,
well, I
yeah,
say travel in general. Let's say travel in general.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to start there, definitely. Well, so as you mentioned, I've had a love of travel that's been cultivated over many, many years, especially via the family connection to
Yes.
Backroads, which I feel very fortunate to have had. And I think, growing up, I was able to participate in a lot of different travel experiences. Many of them were Backroads trips. And I think I've had several sort of, I guess, eye-opening moments, but one that sticks out in my mind probably was a family trip that we took to Ecuador and the Galapagos. And through that trip, it was a multi-adventure trip. So we were doing a combination of biking and hiking and water activities. And, I could spend a whole bunch of time talking about our family trips in particular and why they're so special. But for me as a kid, I was not particularly I wasn't super comfortable going outside of my comfort zone, or I wasn't super eager to do that. And so some of these trips really pushed me. And I think that trip did so in a way that was really powerful and sort of formed, I think, the way that I think about travel and kind of sparked that interest in me. And in particular, one of the experiences on that trip is we visited a village, a local community, and I got to, be really up close and personal and immersed in this community that was very different from what I had grown up with. Got to speak and have conversations with a lot of the villagers. And that was something that I think I definitely felt outside of my comfort zone. It was a new experience that I had never done something like that before. And I really, I think, was surprised by how much I enjoyed that and seeing new cultures and something that I knew is something I wanted to do a lot more of moving forward. And I, ever since, have always felt energized in those types of experiences. And as you mentioned, I had started a nonprofit where we were donating shoes to local villages and communities. And so, in particular, there was that connection with that Ecuador trip. And so I think because of that, I felt especially sort of connected and motivated to do more to help these communities.
Wow. So that really shaped, it feels like it shaped your idea of what travel should also encompass. So it's not just going and being a tourist, but you had a very cultural experience in that trip. And sounds like you've had others because that seems to be at the heart of kind of why you choose to travel, right? And it's part of maybe a lot of your trips you've had. Aside from that
completely.
experience, have you had, I'm sure you have lots of stories because I know you've been a lot of places. Were there other trips that were also impactful to you?
Yeah, so many. I think one trip or sort of adventure that was very impactful to me as a young person, this wasn't actually a backroads trip, but is the experiences that I had during a study abroad program in India. It is a place that's near and dear to my heart. And this was over the summer. In college, had the opportunity to go to India with a professor of mine. I was a psychology and communications major, and this was one of my communications professors who was from India, and he was leading this course on globalization and sustainability. And so I went over to India with 13 other students, and we traveled all throughout India and did a variety of different coursework and activities and adventures. And that was something that, I think if you've ever traveled, if you've traveled to India, or if any of your listeners have traveled to India, it is an incredible place that is so different from what we experience here in the States. And it was the most, of all the places I've traveled, it was the most different from what I know and of what I've known. And that was very powerful. I think, again, sparked a further love of travel and a spirit of adventure. And at times, I definitely felt in over my head. I mean, there were
Yeah.
experiences where it was, we were the only white people around, the only people speaking English. And I think being in that type of environment where you're the odd one out, and I think was really good for me. And I especially loved the opportunities we had there where we were working in schools or visiting schools, working with children. That felt especially impactful. So, I could go on about other
Yes.
travel experiences, but that is one that I always sort of anchor back to, especially
Yes.
because I was young, I was in college and had never done anything like that before.
Well, and I think those trips, I've had one of those too, like college age, are really, they're formative in how
Yeah,
they impact our future lives. I think I've heard many stories where, during that time frame, whether it was a study abroad, like you mentioned, or just doing, a gap year or something after college, how
very
those
much so.
travels and people that are still traveling today, I would say, how that trip has, sort of gave them that passion or, gave them that focus to the types of travel maybe that are meaningful to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I love that. And I think, India, like you said, it's a big country and so different than the US, as you mentioned. And I have not been yet. So, but if
I add it to your list. It is
yeah,
it is a
but if
special
I would
place.
go, I would definitely, go with a group because I don't feel like, I just think there's a lot going on that goes on in India that I would feel, like you said, out of my comfort zone. So to
Mhm.
have, a group support, which I know is a lot of what, Backroads does a lot of those group tours, which
Yeah,
is incredible.
we do.
I'd like to hear one more of your stories because I love travel stories and maybe share one that it was unexpected, meaning things didn't go as planned. Do you have a trip that
Mm.
maybe kind of,
Ooh, so many
yeah, that
where things don't go as planned.
well, because you've been talking
Yeah,
about getting out of your comfort zone, and I think in general, travel is that's the whole idea, but also to kind of expect the unexpected, meaning it's never going to go as planned usually, but
definitely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned, so many of those travel experiences, I think one of the things that I feel really fortunate about is that so many of my travel experiences have been with Backroads. And so, oftentimes we make sure that things go
yeah,
according to plan. Even if
I'm
they don't
sure.
go according to plan, the guests don't realize they're not
Yeah,
going according to plan.
right.
So I feel very lucky in that sense, but lots of adventures I've had where things don't go according to plan. I think one again that sticks out in my mind as a young person too was just after high school. It was that summer between high school and college. I was briefly in Europe with some friends. It was my first time traveling without my family, a lot of their
Mm,
first times traveling without their family.
yes.
Visiting a lot of new places, staying in, whatever hostels we could find,
Yeah.
and really just doing it on our own, as most people do at that age.
Yeah.
And we were, again, every day very far outside of our comfort zone. And one thing that sticks out in my mind as not going according to plan was it was a group of just women. It was young women. It was, I believe it was 8 of us at the time. And we were in Barcelona, and it was the afternoon one day, and we couldn't find one of our fellow travelers, one of our friends. And we, of course, were in a panic.
Oh,
We had, seen the movie Taken. We have, we just, you get these,
you think worst
crazy
case
ideas in your brain. You
scenario,
think
right?
worst case scenario,
Yeah.
absolutely. And couldn't find her. Looked all over. Sent half of the group out to kind of
Oh
scope
my
the
God.
area. We're calling her. We were looking in the apartment, and this went on for over an hour, which doesn't seem like that much time, but in the moment, it every minute feels like an eternity.
Yes.
So we ended up finding her. Everything was totally fine. She was literally just taking a nap in a place within the apartment. We hadn't been screaming for her. We were in this tiny apartment, but it was just one of those moments where we had to, laugh at ourselves
Yes.
and take a step back and say, okay, the panic was for nothing, but important to keep an eye on your friends and your people.
Yes.
And I think it's always eye-opening to have experiences like that during travel, to figure out how you're going to address it, what you're going to
Hmm.
do, what you're going to do differently, moving forward. But it was all well and good, but it's something we joke about to this day.
Oh, yes, always. But I love how you also, because I like to do that too. Like, if something goes wrong, what did I learn from it? Like,
Yeah.
and how could I do it differently or avoid that next time, right?
Right, right.
So that's a great, way to approach those kind of situations, especially when it comes to travel. Well, my podcast does cater to women. And can you maybe share, because I've noticed, you've noticed that in the past several years that there's been sort of a growth in women's adventure type travel that is just growing. What are your thoughts on why you think that's happening?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've absolutely seen the same thing as you. In regards to women's travel, at Backroads, we have women specific adventures that we launched just a couple of years ago, and we're seeing triple digit growth this year and are
Wow.
continuing to add more and more trips to try to keep up with that demand. And I think, it's very layered and multifaceted, I think, in terms of why women are flocking to these types of adventures or why women's travel is booming. But I think at the heart of it is women tend to, I think, throughout their lives, um, spend a lot of time doing things for others, thinking about others, whether that is being entrenched in raising your family, raising children, or um, attacking an aggressive career, and
Hmm.
working incredibly hard. And I think that women recently, especially in the past several years, have been sort of waking up. I don't know if it was sparked by the COVID pandemic, but I have to imagine that that played a role of women waking up and feeling like, why wait? Like, the time is now
Yes.
to choose me, do something for myself. And I think it's been really powerful to see women um, have so much enthusiasm for travel, or a reignited sense of adventure. So I do think there's that growing sense of why wait, whether it's a life transition or a milestone birthday, or simply the desire for women to connect with the world and
Yes.
themselves more deeply. I think that women, a lot of times, what we're seeing, at least in our trips and the trips that women are flocking to the most, is there is a sense of journey, of connection, and really, it's an opportunity for women to kind of reclaim their space. And actually, a lot of the trips we're seeing women most excited about have some sort of sometimes a spiritual element. Our
Hmm.
Camino de Santiago trip has been incredibly popular. And I think there's that sense of journey and spirituality and the pilgrimage and the history behind it. So there's
Yes.
several different examples of that. But long story short, I think women are just excited to get out there in an environment that feels enriching and supportive and
Yes.
joyous.
I love that. But I would agree with the timing, honestly, because I think
Mhm.
we all were there and we all kind of have I know I got a little scared, like, am I never gonna be able to travel again?
Right,
Like,
right.
so I think there was that, and like having to just sit. I think a lot of people during that time did reevaluate their lives. Like, What,
Absolutely. And it makes so much
so
sense. I mean, we
yeah,
were all, oops,
locked
I'm
up.
sorry, Cheryl, I just lost you for a sec.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yes, you're there. Yeah, so I agree. We kind of just had to sit and decide what do we want to do for our futures, and instead of, because it gave us time to evaluate. But I do love the fact that you noticed, I think part of that spiritual that you mentioned, like people flocking more to the Camino,
Mhm.
having that pilgrimage or trips like that.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think for women, I get the sense that also when they do group travel, and especially if it's all women, for them, it's about the connection too, I think, and just finding,
Absolutely.
like-minded people, make new
Absolutely.
friends, because I have to admit, I'm in my 50s, and as you get older, it gets harder to make friends. And
Yeah.
so being on,
Hmm.
you find yourself maybe in a group trip and you maybe click with somebody. How exciting that is. You've made a
Completely.
new friend in the process of this adventure. So I
Well,
love the fact that your company is seeming to offer that sort of opportunity and platform for women travelers. So,
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And
yeah.
I think it's one of the exciting things to see on these trips is the variety of different women that do join them. And, we have lots of solo travelers, and then we also have multi-generational
Mm,
dynamics going on with a mother and a daughter. We have old friends from college who never get the chance to see each other, and this is
yes,
their
yes,
opportunity. And that no matter who you are and what your background is, whether you are solo or not, there are these friendships and connections formed that I think is really only possible in an environment like this where it's all women together, it's inclusive, it's an energizing space, it's safe. I think
yes,
safety is another component to these trips that,
yeah.
we see women really excited to go to these far-flung places like Bhutan or
Hmm.
Nepal, where, or Morocco, for instance, where they might not feel as comfortable traveling on their own. And so this
Correct.
gives them that vessel to do that in a really, really exciting, safe way.
Yes, I love that. And that you have that, like you said, they have a shared experience that
Right.
also kind of connects them in a way. Well, what type of activities can someone do on a because Backroads does group tours, but they are activity adventure driven. So give us
Yeah.
some examples of what are some things that we someone could do on one of your tour groups.
Yeah, absolutely. So for women specifically, we focus on walking and hiking. But overall, for all of our travelers, it's a variety of walking and hiking, biking, and we have trips that we refer to as multi-adventure, which is
Hmm.
usually a combination of hiking, biking, and maybe some other activities that are specific to the region, whether that's, zip lining or kayaking or
Yeah.
rafting. So they're all active by nature, but lots of different activity levels that we accommodate. We have trips that we refer to as dolce tempo, which essentially translates to sweet time. But
Okay.
what the trips really entail are they're still active, but they're a slower pace. So for
Yeah.
those travelers who just they want a trip that's active in nature, but they don't want the super fast pace. They don't
Mm,
want the really rigorous activity
hmm.
levels. We're really working hard to accommodate all different types of travelers while still staying true to that and kind of anchoring back to that active pillar.
Yes. So where are some places that your group takes people? Just name it. I know you go
Oh
a lot
my
of places
goodness, all over the
all
place. But
over.
some places that have been really, I think, popular
Popular.
lately
Yeah.
is Croatia,
I was gonna say
absolutely.
Croatia.
Yeah, I mean, always, Spain, Italy and France have always been
Yeah.
incredibly popular, in particular, the Dolomites, Tuscany, the Alpine regions, the French and Italian Alps, the Swiss Alps, the Bavarian Alps. People are really flocking to those areas. We run safaris in Africa. We have
Oh,
in
wow.
all different parts of Africa. And they're active safaris. We do
Okay.
biking trips across Vietnam and Thailand, and we have a huge presence in North America as well, throughout Canada, the States, and Latin America, and really everywhere. We go to Antarctica.
Oh, wow. That's
We
incredible.
are constantly looking at how we can not only grow our offering in terms of the places that we're visiting, but how can we also expand capacity in the places that are most popular. And it's really exciting to see when we add a new region. Um, just to give you an example, we've gone to Portugal for quite some time, and it's always been an incredibly popular region. But recently, I believe it was 2 years ago now, we added a trip to the Azores.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and and that has absolutely taken off in a huge
Yeah.
way. And of course, we thought there would be demand for it. We wouldn't have launched it otherwise, but I think we were blown away by the response that we saw. And so when we see something like that and we see momentum in a certain area, then we quickly work
Yeah.
to add more capacity. So that's a long way of answering your question about where we go, but
Yeah. No,
lots of really
I
exciting spots.
wasn't aware of Antarctica because I know only
No,
few people go, few groups go there, right?
correct. Yeah.
And then you mentioned African safaris, but you said
Hmm.
they're active. So I'm
They
curious, how are
are.
they active? Because when I think of a safari, I'm like, oh, you just, you ride in the Jeep, you go
Yeah.
see the animals, like,
Right, totally. And that is the classic safari
yeah.
model. So I will say, as you were asking me about travel experiences that have shaped me, I was thinking about my favorite trip I've ever done was our Backroads active safari to South Africa and Botswana.
Okay.
And it's an incredibly unique experience because we are really the only luxury safari provider out there that does these active safaris where we enable our guests to actually bike on the game reserves, and you're seeing giraffes in the distance, in
Oh my
addition to the
gosh.
classic safari
Yeah.
experiences where you're
Okay.
going out on the game drives early in the morning and seeing all of this beautiful wildlife. But that trip in particular, it's sort of a journey from South Africa to Botswana, and you experience the winelands up outside of Cape Town, all the way to the safari experiences in Botswana, and then back to South
Yeah.
Africa to do more safari. And so it's a real sense of journey from all of these different places from Cape Town into the safari regions and the deserts. But it's a wonderful experience, and biking through the actual game reserves
Oh my gosh.
is
That would be
an
incredible. Yeah.
incredibly unique and
Yes.
one of my favorite experiences I've ever had.
Yeah. I mean, you don't hear that's because, like you said, the traditional model is, you get in a Jeep and
Right.
they drive you out,
Right.
you see some animals or whatever. Yeah.
Totally. Which, don't get me wrong, is incredibly
I,
special too. And so I loved that part of the trip, definitely. But I loved complementing it with the biking and with some of the hiking outside of Cape Town, and just having that really those diverse experiences in addition to the classic safari was quite special.
awesome. Now, how many of these do you get to go on?
Oh gosh.
Like, how
Well,
often do you go every year on
yeah.
at least one or
Yeah, I
something?
try to. I now have a little one at home, Teddy. He's 1.5, so that makes it a
Okay.
little bit more challenging. But historically have done 1 to 2 a year every year, which I feel incredibly fortunate
Hmm.
about.
Yeah.
Um, we are able to go. We're going. My husband and I with some of our friends on our French and Italian Alps hiking trip next month, which we feel so grateful to do. And Teddy will get some time with his grandparents. So
There
we
you
feel
go.
very lucky about that
Yes.
too. But yeah, it's harder. It's harder to make these things happen with a little one at home, but still get to
Yes.
get out there every now and then.
Speaking of group tours, you had mentioned off air that Backroads is going to, as solo travelers, which is my audience.
Hmm.
One thing that is a somewhat of a complaint, whether it's you're cruising or you're doing a group tour, is we often get charged what's called that single supplement, and or we get charged more in some
Hmm.
way. Um, how is Backroads addressing that? I think you mentioned that you are, working on something right now to help us solo travelers.
We are,
Yeah.
yes. So we're really excited about this. And just as some background on Backroads and our trips, we have welcomed solo travelers since the beginning of time and have
Yes.
always been really enthusiastic about our solo traveler kind of branch of guests. And we're always looking for more we can do to entice them and accommodate
Hmm.
them. And one of the things that we're doing coming up is really presenting a collection of some of our greatest trips where we'll have a reduced single supplement. So just making it a little bit more accessible for our solo guests to join a Backroads experience in a more affordable way. So that's something that we're launching next month in August. I believe by the time that this airs, that will already
Yes.
be live on backroads.com. But really hoping that that not only makes the trips more accessible to solo travelers, but that then there might be an even larger contingent of solo travelers on those trips specifically. So if you're a solo traveler, it's always nice to have other solo guests
Yes.
along and not be the only one. And so that's a great way for us to kind of direct guests to trips in particular that might be best suited for them, that they'll have the best experience on.
No, I appreciate that because it's discouraging. At least it was for me when I'll take the cruise thing, for example.
Mhm.
You know, because I wouldn't mind going along, but it was just like almost twice the price. So
It's cost prohibitive for
yes,
sure.
exactly. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to cruise until I can find somebody to go with.
Yeah, right. No, totally. And
Yeah.
we have a large contingent of solo travelers, and we want to cultivate that and
Yeah.
continue
Yeah.
growing it. So
Yeah.
we're excited about it.
Very good. I love that. And on a more personal level, speaking of solo travelers,
Mhm.
would you have some, since you've traveled so much and you have had so many layers of experiences, I'll just say that, right? You got some good
Sure.
and bad, probably. What would be a piece of advice you would give a woman solo traveler who maybe is going for her first trip?
Yeah, great question. Um, I guess a few pieces of advice. I mean, my first would be probably to start small, actually. So if you've never traveled solo and you're a solo female traveler, maybe just start with a small weekend trip. See how that suits you, get your bearings, figure out what you like, what drives you,
Yeah.
what do you appreciate about that trip, and then you can replicate it on a bigger scale moving
Mm,
forward. Sometimes those smaller trips feel a little bit less intimidating and more approachable and more feasible to pull off even. So I think starting small is a great one. I think following your intuition the entire time. I mean, letting your intuition guide you, that you don't necessarily have to see everything, but really leaning into what feels right and what sparks joy for you. And I think, that goes for any solo traveler, but women in particular. And I think leaning into those things that you enjoy the most. So just letting your intuition guide you. And then I guess finally, I would say, to just kind of remember that you are capable of probably more than you think. So
mm.
I think every solo journey begins with just even taking that first step. I think that is kind of courageous in and of itself. And I think that all solo travelers, women especially, will be so, I think, proud of and impressed by themselves and what they can do and what they experience when they get out there. Um, I think it's a really empowering thing to do.
Yes, totally agree. It so is. And for those that have never experienced a solo trip, I mean, and people that have it's hard to put in words, because everybody's
Mhm.
experience is different, but there is definitely this, like you said, that word you said, empowerment that
Yeah,
happens when you get out of your comfort zone, as we've been talking
totally.
about, right? But
Yeah.
I also loved how you said to honor your intuition. And I think a lot of people, when they go places, they get caught up in, I got to see this, I got to see that.
Hmm.
And it's this rushed feeling as
Yeah.
opposed to really finding, like you said, find what gives you joy. Like
Yeah.
what would make you happy in this trip and
Yeah.
not necessarily, maybe you don't like crowds. So, you
Right.
pull back a little, right? I love
Totally.
that. So
Yeah.
great advice. I
I
agree in all
think, I
this.
mean, sure, I take it even a step further.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that, letting your intuition guide you. And I think one of the most powerful things in my mind about solo travel is the opportunities it opens up for connection. When you're by yourself, I think there are more opportunities to be had to, take a moment and speak to the person next to you who might be traveling solo by themselves, and other solo travelers looking for that connection. And I think
Yeah.
if you're too wrapped up
Mhm.
in planning out your day, every second of it, and getting from one place to the other and looking at your phone to guide you,
Yep.
you miss out on so many of those opportunities for connection, especially when you're traveling solo. So if you can let go of that a little bit, let your
Mhm.
intuition guide you, and be open to those around you and the experiences around you and the people around you, I think that that will only be even more enriching for the overall experience.
Yes, absolutely. You hit the nail on the nose, right? So thank you for sharing that. Um, so I love the idea of starting small, but I think once they've done that, maybe a potential next step, if they're not quite ready to like jump out and do a whole solo trip by themselves.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you agree? Like a group tour might be great, right? So
Sure. Yeah, I'm
so
biased, of
yes, I know
course,
you're
but
biased, but
absolutely.
I think it's a great place for people also to start because they might even just have this fear factor and of being alone, just being alone in general.
Completely.
And so I love that Backroads does accept and welcome solo travelers, and you have so many trips to choose from. So tell us, where can we, find out where all those trips are? Obviously, you got a
Sure.
website. Is there some social media that you can share as well with
Sure,
us?
absolutely. Yep. So backroads.com is our website, and you can find us at Backroads Travel on Instagram and all social channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. And I think, Cheryl, you just touched on it, but that, uh, you know, as a solo traveler, if you're open to not just traveling by yourself, but traveling with others, I do think a group tour
Hmm.
is the way to make people feel the most connected and safe and taken care
Yes.
of, and to let somebody else handle all of the planning and
Yes.
all of the details and all of the, schlepping your bags and stuff
Yes.
that isn't as glamorous or fun about travel. It's
Yes.
really nice to be able to let go of some of that and hand it over to
Yes.
experts who are there to support you. So I do think that's a really freeing thing as a solo traveler. Um,
Absolutely. Oh, I
yeah.
love that you don't have to worry. I had done that on my Camino.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I slept my bag the whole time. I should have had it
And that's a
transported.
great way to do it too.
That's a harder way to do it, I'll tell you.
It's
But
true. It's
yeah,
true.
but yeah, to have someone else, I love that, to have someone else do all the planning, because I think that too prevents a lot of people from, you know, jumping into doing a whole week of travel. Like all that planning can be overwhelming.
Oof, it's a
And to have
lot.
someone else, I know, right? Take care of it. I mean,
Right.
that's a whole lot. Then you can truly enjoy the experience, I think,
Completely. And
honestly.
for people who have, so much going on, and
Yes.
that mental load that so
Mm-hmm.
many of us carry around all the time, to be
Absolutely.
able to alleviate some of that is, true vacation, I think.
Yes, yes. I love it. Well, any last minute like nuggets of truth or anything else you want to share?
I don't know about last minute nuggets of truth. I think I just really appreciate this opportunity to connect with you, Cheryl, and I really enjoyed this conversation. And I think, it is such a exciting time to be
Mm-hmm.
in the travel space and supporting all different types of travelers
Yes.
out there, but specifically women and
Yes.
solo travelers who are looking for a deeper sense of journey and connection and adventure, and that there's so much enthusiasm and passion and desire out there to experience. That is something that really energizes me and excites me, and I so applaud you for creating this space for solo women travelers to learn a little bit more. And
Yeah.
it's really, really great to see. So thank you for allowing me to take the
Yes.
time with you.
Absolutely. And I love connecting with companies like yours that, really support the solo traveler in some way, or encourage them, invite them in, and, provide a great service too. So guys,
Absolutely.
go to the website, check out some of their trips, backroads.com. And I will also leave the other social media links in the show notes for you folks to check out so you can follow them, right? And see where they're going.
Thank you,
Thank
Cheryl.
you
So
again,
appreciate it.
Avery. Yes, loved it.
Take care.
You too.